did it go in your homework? We did Feeling the Spirit and teaching your children to feel the Spirit last week. So part of it was in preparing for conference and share with your children a spiritual experience that you've had. Start a journal of tender mercies. Pray daily to be more sensitive to the promptings of the Spirit. Read from the Book of Mormon every day. And you haven't had a chance yet, but the blue star, the wonderful one, is to bear your testimony of past meeting next time. Some of you are already panicking about that one. It's okay. So how did it go? What did you find? Did you have any experiences? Did you have an opportunity to share something with your children that you had felt? Or did you ask them how they're feeling the Spirit? How did it go? I see heads shaking. Yes. Yes.
So my husband gave a talk in sacrament meeting on Sunday, and he had really prepared for it. Actually, he thought he was supposed to give it the week before, so he was really extra prepared. And then it was a really spiritual talk. I had prayed to feel the Spirit, and I really did feel the Spirit. And so yesterday at family home evening, we were talking to our kids, and I just made a point to say, I love that Daddy gave a talk in sacrament meeting, and that I really felt the Spirit during that. And he said, yeah, I actually did too. As I was speaking, it was really a powerful experience for me. And our 4-year-old said, I did too. And I said, really? Kind of, she's 4. She says, I said, what did that feel like? And she says, like hugging.
Oh,
And it just
how
melted my heart. It was
sweet.
just, that was really special.
I think that's the best definition of the Spirit I've ever heard. Feels like hugging. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. But what I liked is that you asked her how it felt. Not just did you feel it, but how did it feel to you?
Yeah.
And everybody may feel it a little bit different. We talked about the different ways we feel it. So that was wonderful in helping her actually identify and have to put into words for her what that felt like. Good question. Good question. Anyone else like to share an experience? There were some heads shaking over there. Yes.
We've tried to increase our daily, like at the first lesson, dinner time routine. Nobody can leave the table. And actually I made it till Mom's done eating. But it's been really nice for the conversation. And one morning in our family prayers, my daughter prayed that we would feel the Spirit that day. And so after our prayer, I told our children, I said, pay attention today. Let's look and see if we do feel the Spirit. And then tonight we'll share. And that was a really special experience that night at dinner time to say, okay, did anyone feel the Spirit? Did any of you have promptings to do something? And it was really fun to see the kids, and one of them was like, well, I think I did, and this is what I did, and it was really nice for us to be able to say, yes, that was the Spirit telling me to do that. And so it was good for our family.
Wonderful. Remember, they have to be taught. They have to be taught what this is. So, and it's not that they're not feeling it. It's that they have to learn to identify that that's what it is. So that as they get older, they can say, yes, I feel the Spirit every day. Rather than, no, I haven't felt it. So they have to identify it. Yes.
I did something that you counseled to try to avoid doing. I went into my daughter's bedroom at night to tell her good night. This is my teenage daughter, and she was watching a show that I had asked her not to watch. And it's one that she can access on her Netflix account, so it's not restricted, but it's not. I've just seen an episode before, and I turned it off because I didn't think that it was a good one. And so we talked about the absence of the Spirit and how that made her feel. And so it was a teaching on the spot instead of teaching before you have to. But
No, that's wonderful.
anyway, so that's what we talked about.
That's great. And to identify the absence really is as important as identifying the companionship. So that's great. Good job. That was wonderful. Yes, Holly.
I feel like we've been doing things, there's things that we do in our home that help bring the Spirit, but I feel like I haven't done as good of a job, like you had mentioned last time, like not always helping them to recognize and say, like, do you feel that? And so one of the things that we've been doing in an attempt to make our Sabbath days better is for an hour we watch the Bible videos that the church put out, and sometimes like some of the Mormon messages as well. but I try to do a lot of the Bible videos, and you can just buy them, you know, if you don't want to stream the whole thing, like at Deseret Book for like, I think it was $5 for the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we've been watching that, and I just like made a point to like ask the kids, you know, like, how do you feel, and like, you know, why do you think you feel that way? And they all three of the kids had different answers, you know, as to why. But then later in the week, like I kind of just kept like bringing it up on like little occasions, you know, of like, why, you know, how do you feel with this? This is the Spirit. And then later in the week, I'd had a experience, and I think it was just kind of a combination of, I was preparing for a lesson in Relief Society, and I feel like I always have like the Spirit with me more when I do that. And I was trying to do everything else as well, you know, for the assignments, and I had a really, really strong impression out of the blue for one of my visiting teaching sisters, or ministering sisters, I guess. Sorry, I always get that wrong still. Anyways, and I remember as I went and I had it was a specific thing to go do something for her, and I told my kids, it was kind of out of the way and took some time, but I was able to share with them, like, this was a prompting from the Spirit, and I felt like they were a lot more understanding about me being away. They're like, oh, okay, that makes sense, like, you go do what you need to do. And I feel like we're just trying to make more connections, you know, like, when the Spirit prompts us, like, we listen, you know, and to, like, respect that and be happy that we got that prompting. Does that make sense?
That was awesome. That's intentional parenting. That's what we are intentionally trying to teach them, rather than just a lovely home evening lesson. This is intentional, helping them actually see it and feel it and understand it. Perfect, Holly. Thank you. Yes.
We had a few things. Last week's lesson was really great. It's changed a lot of things in our home, I think. So you asked us to be more mindful of feeling, acting, and prompting. So every night we sit down with our kids right before prayer, before everybody goes to bed, and we talk about their favorite things through the day and nice things that they did for somebody. But my husband asked the kids every night, you know, he started after last week's class to give an experience where they felt the Spirit and where they acted on it. And they were a little like, oh, okay, like, I don't feel the Spirit every day. And he said, well, you're going to be surprised. Pray about it, think about it. And so it's been neat. Every night kids have come. And a lot of times it's just little things like my youngest, he's 11, he said, I was laying on the couch and all of a sudden I thought, I really should do my chores. I think that was the Spirit prompting me, so I wouldn't, you know.
Great.
So it was just little things, but I thought it was interesting that they said it was a little thing, but I'm pretty sure it was a Spirit. So of course we followed up and said, well, yeah, I mean, it's not always something big, it's small things. And then last week he challenged, so that was really great. And it's creating this kind of neat little environment in our home now that they're being more aware. But last week he challenged us, we did our family mission statement, and then we had a family night after it. And last night I did a family night about not just talking about the principles, but actually like implementing them into our lives. So my son had taught the lesson on love, so last night I said, okay, so what are we gonna do to show love in our family? And so I asked them, we're not a good journaling family, and that comes from me, you know, it's parenting, right? It always comes back to parents. I'm terrible at it, my husband's terrible at it. But we decided that we would pray, you know, in our nightly prayers, we'd pray and just pray for opportunities to show love within our family. And those promptings that we felt at night, we'd write them in our journal, and then the next day, hopefully we will do it, and then we return and report that night. And so we just started it last night, but my oldest son, it was really sweet and kind of tender. He said, after family night, you know, we did our 3 favorite things because we're getting ready for bed. And he said, one of my favorite things today was the family night lesson you read, because this was, you know, I've been like wondering, and I didn't even know, he's a 15-year-old boy, you know, I mean, they don't care about things like that. I thought, he said, I've been wondering how I was going to show more love in our family, because things have been a little contentious lately, right? I mean, he's a teenager. But he said, I've just been trying to figure out how to show more love in our family, and this was an answer to that. So,
Wow.
anyway, that was kind of a little mercy. So.
That is awesome, because there's not enough lectures in the world that would have actually made him come to that conclusion. So it has to come from the inside out. And we just create the environments where they can feel that. Do you happen to have your mission statement with you?
No, it's still on our whiteboard, scribbled out and stuff. I'll print it out this next week.
Okay, because we would love
Yeah.
to share any of you that actually reach the point where you have it written down. It, you know, it's a process. It's a process of coming to it.
Ours
So-
isn't great or eloquent
Hey, now don't make excuses. It's okay. They're all good. Yes. See, that's the problem. We start making these excuses because we think it's better than not as good as somebody else. We're not comparing. This is you and your family, and you did it, and that's awesome. Yes.
So I brought ours,
Good.
and we did it last year. It's laminated because I have a laminator
Here,
because
let me
I like to laminate things.
let me just show it up
Yeah.
here so it's on.
Yeah.
So it's on.
So, and
Okay,
we
so
recite
this
it.
is yours.
We recite it
Jeff's?
every night. Our last name is Jeff's, and so I wanted it to. We have one daughter, and she's 6, and we put it together when she was 5. And so I wanted it to be something that was easy, that we all could memorize, and that was her language. And so we had a family home evening.
It's all signed.
We all signed it.
It's so cute.
And that's the one that hangs in our living room, and then we have one that hangs in each bedroom. And it's been a great teaching tool for us because, so our mission statement is, as a family that wants to be together forever, we will be like Jesus, be kind every day, have regular family time, follow the prophet, and serve others. And then our motto is keep moving forward. And so when my daughter gets frustrated, we can point to this and say, keep moving forward. Or, when she's having a sassy day, or I'm having a sassy day, we can point to it and say, are you being kind every day? We're supposed to be kind every day. And you signed it, and you agreed to it. And we haven't been so great about family home evenings teaching to this, and that's something that I want to work on more. But
Okay, so how long did it take you to come up with that? To actually have this finished product?
a couple weeks.
So see, it's a process. It's not, you don't sit down one night and have it at the end of family home meeting and it's done. It's this process of thinking about it, and especially if you have some teenagers. Little people, you can kind of guide a little bit faster than some of your teenagers. They're more opinionated. So, but that's good. That's good. But it just takes it's just a longer process. Yes.
I was gonna say, so, it's fun that you guys all have young families. I have this house full of teenagers, and when I talk about spiritual things, their eyes gloss over, or they roll in the back of their heads, or things like that. So I've been a little bit scared to do the whole mission statement, honestly, with them. And just for them to say this is dumb, whatever, And family home evening is always one of those things, do we have to do it? Why can't we just do something fun? That kind of thing. But it's also always this rush thing, okay, I'm tired and we gotta do it fast, let's just hurry, that kind of thing. So I kind of sat them down and said, okay, I totally get that you wanna do fun things, and I do too, but we need more time because we also wanna talk about important things, and your dad and I wanna share our testimonies with you, so we gotta have more time. So we talked about that on Sunday. So that on Monday we had enough time to do something fun. We went and walked along near the ponds, and then we came home and talked about the mission statement. And I was actually really surprised that everyone was willing, and I prepared them on Sunday. I said, okay, you guys be thinking about something for the mission statement, how you want our family to look, And I kind of honestly, I expected them to say we don't have to go to church or things like that, I really, really did. I have kids that would say that. So I was expecting the worst. And I did have one kid say that they wanted to write on there that freedom. Freedom from the, tyranny that is our family. And I said, well, we're not going to put that in there because there has to be rules and guidelines.
You see, that comes when you're 18 and you leave home.
Right.
You got it.
But everything else we put in there, and it honestly, I just was wow, that was a success.
Yeah.
And it's good stuff. It's not as spiritually, focused as I would make it if I were making my own, but it's good. And what I was able to say is I said what mine was, because we all had a suggestion, and there's enough of us to make this big thing, but I said I would love to have the Spirit in our home. But I said, but all these things that you guys said would create the Spirit
That's
in our
right.
home. So anyway, I felt like it was this big win.
But the key to that win was the pre-preparation. So anytime you're going to do something big, you have to prepare them for it. Some of you may know, my daughter's here today. Tracy is my daughter who will someday inherit this class. She's the one that I will turn this class over to in the near future. But the reason I want to put her on the spot for a minute is because she had she has 6 kids, 3 of which were boys all at the same time in this teenage experience. And they were going to do a family motto and, family mission statement. And she came up with a motto that kind of took my breath away, but has hung with her kids, especially boys and girls. And so I want her to explain what it is and then tell you what it is. I don't want you to tell us what it is first, but please tell us what it's based on and then tell us what it is. But see if you don't think this just gravitates to teenage boys. Just come up here for a minute so they can all see you. So that everybody can see you. So that you're on camera.
Yeah, we really struggled with the mission statement. I tried on several occasions to do it, and this is dumb. This is so stupid. And then, for hours we would sit and here you're trying to do this great thing that bonds your family. And so I really struggled with it. So I let it go for a long time. We did have like a little chant when they were really young that we did. But by the time you're 10, they don't want to do this little primary chant anymore. So that we were done. And so I kept approaching it and to nothing. And one day we actually were reading scriptures and we had been thinking about this. And we were reading about Captain Moroni. And the chapter where it talks about if all had been or were like unto Moroni, the very gates of hell would shake before and crumble, shake and crumble or something like that. And so we've been talking about it and the qualities that Moroni had that would produce that effect. What did Moroni have that would cause the gates of hell to fall? So anyway, our motto is shake some hell. Because we want to be on the offensive. We want to rattle Satan's cage. We don't want to always be defending him. We want to be on the offensive. We want to be doing those things that scare him, but are also the defensive for us, that the service, the charity, that we believe. So we studied and we wrote out all of these things that the characteristics we want to have. They were, and they're in that chapter, but you can, but then you do a few of your own. So that's what ours is. It shakes some hell. And I have missionaries out, and that's what we say every time at the end. Shake some hell. Go do it. Go be that guy today. And so we always do that with our letters, and it just is really, it's been really good. And my kids love it, and I know she hates it because you say hell.
The reason I love to have Tracy share that is sometimes you feel with teenagers, you can't do anything to get them, to help them be interested. And you can. It's the approach. And if the approach is right and they buy into it, it's her son that's on the mission that I read that letter from the very first, I think it was the first week. So it's her son that wrote that sweet letter. And believe me, and he's written me little, he sends me little emails every once in a while while he's on his mission. And he always closes that way. Grandma, shake some hell. And I'm going, yes, Cody, yes. Work on that this week. Yes.
I actually brought mine. I don't know why, but
You're
you
good.
should share it. And
Yes,
so
please.
I brought mine, and that was like dust all over it. But
Come up.
It was like the best family night, and it really bonded our family. It brought us together.
Yep, and I show it.
And it looks like this. And I'm Hawaiian. My husband's a Swede, so he's a Viking. And the goal is a temple and a picture of our family. And I prayed about this before we had family night, that we would have the Spirit and that we would bring the kids in and that they will feel the feeling we're trying to create. And it really bonded us as a family. We're like, go Erickson. We're like all hands in.
the family chose a scripture that represented who we were. And it was Alma 27:27, and we wrapped it around the circle here. And it said, and they were also distinguished for their zeal towards God and also towards men, for they were perfectly honest and upright in all things, and they were firm in the faith of Christ even unto the end. And that became, our kids memorized this scripture and what it meant to be an Erickson. And they all came up with words that represented what an Erickson is. And Erickson, for the E, it's each of us. R is for respect. I is for integrity. C is for courage. K is for kindness. S is for spiritual. O is for obedient. And N is for nice. And taking this class was such a blessing because it really brought the Spirit and it joined our family together. We had a common goal. We knew what it was and what it meant to be an Erickson and what we would stand for as being an Erickson. And this was one of the most favorite activities, and I didn't know. I saw it on the wall this morning, and she's like, oh, I hope you'll share it and bring it. And I was like, mine is in the car. I was like, that's really cool, but if you can get your family and pray to the Lord before you start your family night and how you should lead it, you will grab their hearts. They will feel the Spirit so strong, and it will unite you and bind you as a family because you have a common purpose and goal and what you stand for and what you represent. And later for Christmas, we ended up printing these shirts on the back of every one of them. And my husband just got laid off, so it was a really simple Christmas, but we prayed so hard to know what we would do. And so we printed this on the back of each of our kids' shirts. It was for the pajamas, and we made like super sashes. They all had a different color. It was red, blue, or black, and then I made like masks, for them when they were little, and they're all taking pictures like this in front of the Christmas tree. And it was to remind them it's great to be an Erickson. It's a wonderful thing to be an Erickson, and we're a family, and we're going to do this together. And this was probably one of my most favorite exercises, and I'm so glad you let us share it because I didn't know why I put it in the car, and you're like, I hope you'll bring it to share. I'm like, okay, but I hope you'll be able to do this with your family because it'll bring you together and just pray to the Lord because He'll inspire you how to reach your kids. And they'll feel the love you feel for them, and they'll be able to join in on that with you.
I'm so glad she shared that. Because sometimes when you get the assignment, you feel like, ooh, I don't think we want to do it. And then you present it to your family, and they even do it worse. What are you talking about, Mom? I don't want to do that. But it is binding. It is binding. But they all have to be part of it. They all have to take part of it. But it creates this unity. We could have the closing prayer now, and I'll go home. And that was it. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Because I'm going to throw out another question, and I expect some fabulous responses. What are you doing to prepare for conference? Yes.
We had family meeting last night. I hate to admit this, but it's probably like our third time in 13 years. I have a 13-year-old, and we're just not very good at it. My husband works late, and anyway, so I took you said to learn about the apostles, so it wasn't very spiritual. It was a lot of fun.
Good.
But I did notice throughout the night, I'm gonna get emotional, sorry. My kids, I have two that don't get along, and they sat and laughed all night last night. And so even though it was just fun, not very spiritual, I feel like it brought the Spirit in our home. And yeah, so.
That's awesome. That's good. Did you see somebody posted on Facebook all of the prophets, which I thought was fabulous, just good. And then they made a link to where you could go get those too. So that was really helpful.
It was super simple to go get them and print them off.
Did you go to the site and get them?
I did, yeah. And the pictures of prophets is nice to have, and then they also have a little excerpt that tells about each of the member of the 12 and the first presidency that you can tell your family about on each one of them.
So that was it. See, somebody did your homework for you.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's on the Facebook.
It's on the
page.
Facebook. The
And
link
somebody-
to it is on the Facebook page. Yeah. What?
Facebook page again?
Andrea, what's the Facebook page?
It's Carlene Tanner's Positive Parenting.
It's Carlene Tanner's Positive Parenting.
And you have to have the apostrophe S or it won't.
And you have to have the apostrophe S or it won't go. I don't even know my own address. Yes.
I was just gonna say also, I don't know, years ago I got this from somebody, but I put them in a little notebook for a quiet book at a church, you know, so you could also do that. Just a little dollar store photo album. And
Good
put the
idea.
prophet and the information about him, so, you know, during sacrament, a great thing to hand your kids, you know, they can learn about the prophets, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's great to have it on the wall as well, and that just to, you know, something.
Another
different.
great idea. That's what we're talking about today. Are these good ideas. Yes. Anyone else have something there? Yes.
There's 6 of us, so I just assigned each person 2 of the apostles to go and research themselves.
Perfect.
And then, so this week they have to research them, and then Monday night they'll give their little report.
Do you know
And
what's
then I
exciting
plan
about
on
that?
putting What?
You know what's exciting about that?
What?
They're 2 that they're assigned to research. Let me tell you, they will listen to what they say in conference because
Yeah.
they have ownership.
Yeah.
What a great idea. Finish. And what else were you
I
saying?
was just gonna say, I'm gonna post all their pictures up by the TV, and they can put their little report by their person. on the wall.
Awesome.
So,
What a great idea.
that way they have to do all the work.
And
I just get to see.
but whoever does the work is the one who is
It's the
invested.
one that learns.
That's right. So
So.
that's not lazy. That's brilliant. That's smart. Okay. Anyone else got an idea of what they're going to do for conference? Andrea?
We always have our kids pick the top 3 topics they think will be spoken of, and they have to write them down on their list, and then whoever picks the right ones, they all get a candy bar for whoever picks the right ones after. But then they have to listen during conference to see if theirs was the most spoken about topic.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. I think there's going to be some interesting instructions, changes coming up this conference. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting conference.
I have middle kids, and I needed something a little bit to extend. And so it was similar to Andrea's, but I found it online, and it was like a fantasy football pick, which really brought, certain people into aspects of it, and then you have a grand prize. But it even goes into like, what color will the choir be wearing, and what ties will the choir be wearing, what hymns will they sing. And so it takes you like through Saturday and Sunday and be like, okay, what's gonna be, so we gotta listen. So it really kind of, like every 20 minutes, you were like, what are we looking for? So it helps extend the.
How old are your kids? They're in that age range?
It's 12, 9, and 0.
Okay. The 0's not going to do too well, but that's awesome. That's awesome. Anyone else about conference got any great ideas about feeding them sugar and making them high and getting them all bribed into being there? Yes.
We try to just kind of make conference a holiday weekend because we have just a little one. And so before conference, we get to go to the store and she gets to pick out 4 treats. And I do not tell her what she can and cannot get, and that is hard for me, but she gets to pick out 4 treats. And so each session she gets to, go and pick out what treat she wants, and she can have it as long as she's there in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And then we make a big old bed on the whole living room floor, and we have the binder, and I print out the thing, and so then we buy her a new box of crayons, because they're not expensive. Then she gets a brand new box every conference, and she loves it.
What a great idea.
She gets excited for conference, which is awesome.
I hate to say it, I still get excited about a new box of crayons. They are so exciting to me. Get a new box of crayons and color with my grandkids. Oh, I love a new box of crayons. Yes.
So I didn't set it up this conference, but in April, I set it up with Conference Bucks, where my kids, by answering questions on how they sat, and after each talk, I would ask them a certain question about it, and they could earn Conference Bucks. And at the end, I had a table full of dollar store things where they could pay their Conference Bucks and earn being able to pick from the table, and it did significantly change how they decided to listen to conference. I have a 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 5-year-old, and I've tried all sorts of things like candy, and it always seemed to be crazy and wild, but this one time I decided to do that in April. It made a huge difference.
It makes them individually responsible for their own behavior, which is fabulous. That's great. Yes.
This is just, sorry, my voice, kind of minor, but, I've always done like sticky buns or whatever, you know, just on Sunday mornings, and a couple of times, once I tried not making them, cause I didn't wanna be tempted to eat them, and my kids are a fit, and they call them conference rolls, is what we call them, and they just plan on them every conference, and we always make 2 batches and take some to somebody else and deliver them before conference so that they can
What a
use
great
it.
idea.
And
Do you have my address?
They get upset if I don't do them.
Yeah.
So it's just, I mean, it doesn't really help them listen that much, I guess, but it helps them look
No,
forward to
it's a
conference.
warm fuzzy that helps prepare. It helps to prepare to receive the Spirit when you have those warm fuzzies. I have to tell you one thing that Tracy did with her kids when they were growing up. They're now leaving home, but she had conference notebooks for each of them, and only on conference Saturday and Sunday, they would get those out and they would take notes. And I even have, when they were little, they drew pictures, and I have copies of some of the pictures because they were fabulous, fabulous. Do you remember when Robert D. Hales gave that talk about he wanted to buy his wife a new coat, and she says we can't afford it, and he said we can afford it. We can afford you to have a new coat, and she said, well, mine isn't worn out. I don't need one, and he just wanted her to have a new coat. So here's this cute little picture of these stick figures of Robert D. Hales behind a stick podium and her standing there behind a stick rack with a coat on it, and the word saying, we can't afford it. And then on the bottom, the caption of, if you don't need it, you can't afford it. And so I thought, how awesome. What was she? She was
I think it's
6 or 7. I mean, she wasn't writing yet. So, and then the wonderful thing about these journals that they had is then they would put them away, and in the next conference 6 months later they pull them back out and they're adding to it, and that not only are they reviewing what was said at the last conference, though they've reviewed their ensigns all 6 months, but they're seeing what was made an impact on them, but they're also watching how they grow spiritually, from drawing the pictures to just pre-mission taking some incredible notes and writing them on in other places so they'll have them for missionary references, and just the growth through those notebooks as they watch themselves grow. And I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful conference tradition. Yes.
Conference is definitely tradition. My kids, just the same as your sticky buns, like we have nachos every conference, and if we don't have them, it's a problem. But I've gone through the making the packets and coloring, and it's just, for me, it's always just like so much work, and they sit there for about 5 minutes and then they move on. But one of the things that has stuck with my kids for probably 3 years now is we get out our huge box of Legos, and the first time we did it, I said, let's all just build a Lego temple while you listen. They did that for the solid 2 hours of the first session. And now every conference, they're like, let's get out the Legos and build a temple. And it gets us at least through one session. And I don't have to do anything to prepare for it.
Are you taking pictures of them?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that record of the Lego conference temples would be a fabulous family journal.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it's just easy, and we all have
Yeah,
Legos.
the key is to have them in the same room so they're listening and they're feeling the Spirit when they're little.
Yeah.
As they get older, you want to engage them in actually the topics and what's being taught, and then following up afterwards and using that as your next 6 months family home evening topics.
Can I ask your opinion on something?
Sure.
So my daughter's in the Ridgeview High School marching band, and they scheduled a competition in Pasco, Washington for conference weekend, and I'm torn. I girls are leaving on Friday and they're not coming back till Sunday. And I just said, oh, I'm so mad that they scheduled that.
Aren't they rude?
Yes!
Yes. I will give you my opinion. And you won't like it.
I don't know if you think I like it or not.
How old is she?
She's 14. She's almost 15.
I would tell her to go and pray about it.
That's so much better than me having to decide.
And then you must honor whatever decision she makes
Oh, I love it.
without flack. No lecture. Just say, you know, you have the Holy Ghost, and I believe in you, and I think, connect dots, remember we're connecting dots? When Joseph Smith had a question, he went to the he went to the Lord and asked. And I really feel like the Lord will answer your question too. So she comes back and says, Lord told me to go. And you don't want her to go. I mean, you preconceive what you want your answer to be. If she says, the Lord told me to go, then you support that because you don't know how the Lord teaches lessons. And if you're supportive and say, well, then what can I do to help you follow through with that answer? Then she may be on the trip and have a profound experience where she feels like she really doesn't want to be there. But she would never have that teaching from the Spirit if you tried to teach her with lectures up front. So they reach a point where even when they make decisions that you don't necessarily agree with, if you feel like they've sought answers and they feel like that's their answer, don't tell them they're not hearing the Spirit right. Follow with them and pray the Lord. You pray to Heavenly Father how to use this experience as a teaching tool.
Do you know why that's wonderful? We have been reading Joseph Smith history #1, and we're almost finished with it, and I can just pull right back.
There you go.
15 to 20
That's
verses,
right.
verses 15 to 20. And thank you. I'm
Perfect.
so glad I asked that question.
Andrea.
So we had a really similar experience because I had a son that was in marching band as well, and and he really, really struggled with it because he felt like he needed to go and support because that's what he had committed to, and he felt like he was letting down everybody if he went and did that. But at the same time, there were a bunch of other LDS kids who were in the same situation. And so he says, Mom, he said, I really, really feel like I need to go. And I said, okay, if you need to feel like if you are going to go, that's great. Your dad's going to go with you. And so they did. And he says, but Mom, he goes, there's so many of us that are going to miss the priesthood session. And I said, okay, well, what do you want to do about that? He said, well, on Sunday afternoon, can we have everybody come to our house and we'll eat and watch it that afternoon? And all of the band kids that want to come can come. I said, absolutely. So that's what we did. And so that works for him. And then he did go back and rewatch, his Saturday sessions too. But Sunday afternoon was their band priesthood session. And so they just came and we just had gobs of food and we had a whole group of them there.
It's just interesting the way some of them will learn. And it might not be exactly how you want to lecture them into learning. So allow the Lord to teach. Allow the Lord to teach. There are great things. We had, we've had experiences with homecoming being on conference night. And our boys, what do you do? And they came to some conclusions that were wonderful. But I didn't tell them what they had to do. But they came to conclusions where I was so proud of them. So, allow them to learn. Well, this has really been a wonderful lead-in to what we're going to talk about today. And what we're going to talk about today is the fun side of families. I mean, we do discipline, and we do these things that aren't the fun part of parenting. But this is the fun part of parenting. Now, remember when we had the first class, we talked about righteous, intentional parenting. So I want you to focus on the word intentional. Because this means that you think about it. And you think about it with intent to do something about it, to create something. So on the very first page of this section of the syllabus, on page 31, there is a quote from Elder L. Tom Perry. Now, it was given quite a while ago, 1990, but true principles never change. Never change. And so the applications, practices may change, but the principle never changes if it's a true principle. Eternal truth remains eternal truth. So, Trace, I'm going to have you read that real loud, that paragraph there from L. Tom Perry.
Okay. The practice of having traditions to keep us close should be something every family should try to keep alive. Daily, we should kneel in family prayer and study the scriptures together. Weekly, we should observe the Sabbath day. We should also gather our families together in weekly family home evenings. Perhaps it would also be appropriate to have a date with our wives each week to remind us of the great blessings they are in our lives. Monthly, we should fast and pay our tithes. Semi-annually, we should make listening to General Conference a family tradition. Our family activities and traditions can be a beacon to the rest of the world as an example of how we should live to merit His choice blessings and live in peace and harmony until the day that He returns to rule and reign over us.
Okay, if you have a highlighter or a marker, or if you have the syllabus, I want you to underline 4 words. Daily, weekly, monthly, and semi-annually. Because sometimes we think of traditions as just being what we do on holidays. And hopefully by the time we get done today, you're going to have a little bit of a paradigm shift and realize what really constitutes traditions. Now, when you were married, you have your husband bringing a set of traditions that his family had to the house, to the home, to the new beginnings, and you're bringing your set of traditions to the house, to the home, to the new beginnings. And each one of you, because of the attachment and the bonding that you've had with your birth families, feel like whatever those traditions were are engraved in stone. And they are correct. And they are gospel. They are gospel. So if you have these traditions coming and these traditions coming, you can get overwhelmed. You just cannot keep up with everything that both families did. Then some of you, hopefully not all of you, have these in-laws on both sides that are pulling you saying, well, this is what we do. I mean, this is what we do on Christmas Eve. What do you mean? You need to bring your wife and come, and this is what we do. You know this is what we do. And so now and then his mom or dad is saying the same thing. What do you mean? This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is how you're supposed to do. You need to come be part of the family. You're still, just because you're married, you're still part of the family. You need to come do this with us. And then after you get a few kids, you're thinking, you know what? We want to have our own traditions. I mean, that was great. But now we want to create things for our own children. So now you have both sets of in-laws going, oh, you're not going to come. Yeah, I don't know how you're going to be so cruel to us. Yeah, you're leaving us all alone on Christmas. And you just feel this huge burden of guilt of, what do we do? Well, first of all, I want to say you are free from the traditions of your family. You are not bound to go, if you choose to, from a grandma speaking, I love it. But you are not, don't buy guilt if you cannot make that happen, or if you don't want to make that happen. Your responsibility now is to this new little family. Usually, before you have children or when children are very, very young, you will choose to go to one of the others if they're close enough that you can do that. But as those children get older, you will probably choose to want to create your own traditions, and you should. Now, traditions are more than the holidays. Traditions are those things that cement your family together as a unit. Those are the things that someone asked my son Trevor when he was a senior in high school. He said, "What's it like to be a tanner?" We had kind of a reputation going on over at Boise High School because I had so many. I mean, there's one every year. And so, people are saying, "What's it like to be one of you guys?" And our boys and Tracy, they worked out on the subdivision and poured concrete after school every day. And other kids wanted to come join they thought that would be fun. It was not fun, it was hard work. But they had this reputation. And so somebody asked Trevor once, he says, "What's it like to be a tanner?" And he said, "Well, it's hard work. We have a lot of fun together, and it's spiritual." And I thought, yes, those are good things. I feel good about you describing us like that. But this is, as your children grow up and leave, these traditions are what will answer their question. What is it like to be a Tanner, to be an Erickson, to be a Smith, to be a Jones? What is it? Your mission statement's part of it. It's that view, it's that picture of what it looks like. But your traditions are what create the visual for that. This creates the cement where I teach my children hard work, but what they do says, I mean this, and this is who we are, and this is what we do. So they become that. And so if I was to ask Trace, which I'm not going to, I'm a little nervous about what she'd say, what is her vision? What did she remember? What did it look like to be our family? I'll put words in her mouth. It would be hard work, because she worked out on the subdivision and poured concrete right along with the boys. It would be elevator music, which was the music I played in the home. So it was the sound of our home is I played the oldies. And guess what they play in their homes now? Yes. And so, these are part of tradition. It's what your home sounds like. It's what it smells like. It's what it looks like. What it feels like. And what are the things then that create that vision? I don't know. Well, you've had the experience when you've gone ministering to some of your sisters. Every home you walk into has a different feeling. And it's not bad or good. It's not. It's just that it's different. The homes feel different. And this is because of the traditions that bind those families together. Now, President Faust said, and this is on page 32, he just said, develop family traditions. That was kind of an ultimatum kind of thing. That's like a to-do. Just do it. Develop family traditions. Some of the greatest strengths of families can be found in their own traditions, which may consist of many things. So traditions is not just one or two things. It's many things in your family. Making special occasions of blessing of children, baptisms, ordinations to the priesthood, birthdays, fishing trips, skits on Christmas Eve, family home evenings, and so forth. Now, the next line is what you have to highlight. The traditions of each family are unique and are provided in a large measure by the mother's imprint. So, you are the heart of the home, and you are the one who creates, helps to create, but then sees. Traditions are things that happen repetitively over time. So for you to have an event, a one-time wonderful activity, but it never happens again, that's a one-time wonderful memory and event. Things that happen over time repetitively become what we call traditions. And traditions are formed either intentionally or accidentally. So doing your sticky buns, you just did it one time, and then the next time they're saying, well, where are they? That was not an intentional, I will do this forever on Conference Sundays event, but it became the tradition. I have a son, and in their family for conference, they do Cafe Rio, and they intentionally started doing that, and they do it every conference Sunday, and 90% of the time they'll invite me over to have Cafe Rio. And so, but that was an intentional tradition that was set, and they started it.
So, one thing, my daughter just gave a talk just recently, and I didn't even read it before she gave it. In the middle of it, she talked about how growing up, we've always, as they leave the door, we say, be good, be smart, have fun, and then they yell back or say back and choose the right every single day. It just kind of accidentally became a tradition. And in her talk, she said, it was kind of annoying because we'd have to say it every single day, but then she shared an experience how during school that saying came back to her, be good, be smart, have fun, and choose the right. And she said, I realized, how much I needed to remember that the consistency and stuff like that.
See, and that's like having a family motto. When you use it repetitively like that,
That is our motto.
That becomes a family motto. Yeah, fabulous. That's great. So there's 4 basic needs that every human being has in order to be feel good about themselves and about their environment and feel productive. These 4 needs are met through good, consistent family traditions. So it's important that we have them. So these 4 needs are a need to feel like they belong. So as you say that every morning before you leave, they feel like they belong to this unit because nobody else does that. For good or for ill, they belong to this unit because that's what this unit does. That's part of being in this family. So they feel like they belong. They have a strong sense of identity and know who they are. So in this feeling of belonging, they come to sense, like my son, when he said, well, what's a tanner? He could say, this is what we are. This is what we do. That's that sense of identity and knowing, what do you stand for? What are you? Who are you? And they know that. They feel an acceptance by others. Now, that we're not talking about the outside world, we're talking about the inside world, because they belong to this family, because this is part of the family, because they can identify with what the family does. They feel accepted in this family sphere, and they feel very important as an individual. And the last one is a need for strong emotional and physical security. And that also comes as they find themselves engaged in being part of these positive events every day. They develop this sense of emotional peace because they belong and they feel loved and they feel that security of being part of that unit. So this developing family traditions, that's the glue that binds your family together. Now, I personally came from a family who virtually had no family traditions. We were happy family, an active family in the church, but there was nothing that said, woohoo, this is who we are and what we do. There was nothing. And my husband came from a family like that. The only real identification for his family, that made them stand out was that there were a lot of kids. There were 12 kids. That was their identity. But within that, it was hard to form some real identities because they didn't have any traditions. So when I started my family, we had exactly the opposite. You have 0 bringing 0, and we have 0. So it was, what do I want to create? And some of you are asking that. Some of you are saying, well, I see what we have, but do I need more, or should we have different, or what would be more effective, or how do I get this started, or, these questions. So the first homework assignment you have is, I want you, after today and we discuss what traditions are, I want you to spend some time and really ponder with real intent, what are your family traditions? What are your family traditions? And are they good? Are they building? Are they binding? Are they bonding? Are these what you want them to be? Now, there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. But sometimes a tradition is just busy work and really isn't, it's just stressful and isn't really creating what you want it to build. So look at what you have. Particularly, I want you to focus on Thanksgiving and Christmas. Thanksgiving should be the foundation of gratitude. So you should build traditions that create that foundation of gratitude that leads to the celebration of the gift of Christ. So I think there's real symbolism in Thanksgiving coming before Christmas and in spending. So what that means is you have to look at your traditions and be sure that you're not so stressed getting ready for the busyness of Christmas that you forget to teach a tradition of gratitude for the Savior. So I want you to look at those. I want you to look at those for a little bit and kind of think about what you do. Now, as I was starting my family and bringing 0 to 0 and having 0, the best source for traditions that I found was in Relief Society. And I would look at families that I wanted to emulate, that I wanted my family to grow up to be like, that they had strong attachments and there was bonding. You could just feel the love in those families. And then I would go to the mother and I would ask her, what do you do for birthdays? Or what do you do for Christmas? Or how do you, just ask questions. And sometimes they were just great ideas, but nothing I wanted to do. And other times they were, wow, that's a fabulous idea. So the best way that you can find out what to do, or if you want something new, or even to evaluate what you're doing, is ask questions. Ask other people what they do. And see if you want to, and you may decide that you really like what you do better than anything else, and that's wonderful. But you also may get some fantastic different ideas. And this thing about agency is true. You can't change it if you don't learn something new. So you don't have to change it, but unless you learn about some new ideas, you'll never know if you might want something different. Ours have changed over time, and it's because, I just keep hearing these wonderful things, these good things. I think, oh, I want to do that. And that's a little bit different because now I have to do it as a grandma. So now I'm asking grandmas, what do they do to keep all of their grandchildren close? And when they live far away, how do you keep them bonded? And what do you do? And how do you keep in touch? And man, there's some fabulous ideas out there. There's some really good ideas. And there's ideas out there, because I have so many grandchildren, that are too intense for me. I can't do them. You have to remember that if you start a tradition with child number 1 and you have 10 kids, you're going to be doing it 10 times. So be careful that traditions are things you can follow through with, because they will remember, and you will be held accountable. So let's kind of go through the kinds of traditions that there are. We're going to talk about 4 different kinds of traditions. And some of them you will be right on and think that's true. And others you'll go, is that a tradition? And so the answer is yes. Yes. Okay, first one is daily. You don't think about having traditions in your family as a daily ritual or a daily, but your children identify with your home in those things that you do daily. And you noticed in that quote from L. Tom Perry, he talked about daily traditions. So what would some daily traditions be? Just say them.
Getting up, making your bed, have a routine for the morning.
A morning routine. And having a time to get up. Not just sleeping until you feel like it. Having a time and a routine.
We do family scriptures and
Family
prayer every
scriptures.
morning.
Daily is a daily routine.
Family prayer.
Family prayer. Yes. Daily
Meals,
routine.
They need it every day.
Dinner. Particularly dinner together. Family routine.
Some of the conversation ideas that we've even heard in this class during dinner time, like, these were all of our highs and lows today, or these were my 3 favorite things today, or this is how I felt the Spirit today. That could be.
Absolutely. Daily routine. Okay, now most of you would identify as a daily routine. Let me throw out a couple more that might not be quite so apparent. How you meet and greet your children. If you smile and meet them at the door, or if they have to come find you and you're still in the middle of finishing up the project that you were doing, you're not quite ready for them to come home, and you answer them a little bit crotchety, that's part of daily routine. Or if they come in and they say, Mom, how's your day? And you say, fine. And your face says, maybe it wasn't fine. You know, whether or not you express and wear a smile and show them by your demeanor that you're really happy to be a mom and a wife. I've been in Young Women's, both Stake and Ward, and we have a lot of young women who don't want to get married because they look at their moms and their moms look like it's so hard. And mom's always saying, it is so hard. Nobody ever minds around here. Nobody ever picks up. They're saying, I want to be a mom. You know, I want to have a career and be famous and have money. And so this daily attitude that we portray is part of our daily rituals. It's part of what we do in our daily rituals. Another thing that is part of your daily ritual is, what does your home look like? Do you have pictures of the temple in your home? Do you have pictures of the Savior in your home? Those pictures actually should be in every child's room, as well as, you know, you may have a big, beautiful one in your family room or in your living room, but there should be smaller ones in every child's room. They should have a picture of the Savior, a picture of the temple, and a picture of themselves in every room. We'll talk more about that when we get to self-esteem. But those are important things to have. Now, in our home, when my kids were growing up, my husband built the house that we lived in. And as we were drawing up plans for the house, most typical hallways are about 3.5 feet wide. And we made ours extra wide. I can't remember if it was 4.5 or 5 feet wide. This huge hallway. And we thought that if we made it really, really wide, and we built the house when our children were young, but we thought when they grew to be teenagers, 2 people could walk down the hall without touching, because it would be a wide hall. They can't. They can't. They both migrate right to the center, and they have to wrestle their way down the hall. They can't find out that's just the way they say I love you. But nonetheless, don't build really wide halls for that reason. If you want to build a wide hall, do it for a different reason, because that one won't work. But anyway, on this hall, on one side of this hallway, I counted one time, I had over 50 pictures. And they were all sizes. Some of you were real matchy-matchy. I'm not matchy-matchy. I believe in just stick it up there, get it up there. And so we had 8x10s and we had 5x7s and we had all kinds of different sizes and shapes and frames, and they were not meticulously in order. They were just up there. I figure if you don't put them in a meticulous order, it doesn't matter if your line isn't straight. If you intentionally make them look really, then it always looks great. It looks like that. That's the way it's supposed to. That is the way it was supposed to be, because I can't make it straight. I now have a grandchild wall that's supposed to be straight, and it's really not straight. And I just want to make it hodgepodge because it doesn't look good. But anyway, I called this wall my Hall of Fame. And it had pictures of the children we had backpacking pictures, we had pictures of grandparents, we had choir pictures, we had hunting pictures, we had subdivision pictures, we had formal pictures of grandparents. We just had every kind of, any picture I thought was really cute, I stuck up there. And I had pictures of them of all ages. Because I fall in love with pictures, I didn't take them down just because they got older. They were still up there. And so we had just 50 pictures. Now, this, and then on the other side of the hallway, I had all of their baby pictures, much to their dismay, as they got to be teenagers. Mother, why don't you take that down? So, because I love my babies. They were substituted, when they graduated from high school, I put their senior pictures, graduation pictures there. When they got married, I changed it. But I had my baby pictures there during all the time they were growing up. As their friends would walk in, friends never used the front door. They always used the back door. And so as the friends would walk in, guess what hallway they walked down? They walked down that hallway. And they stop and they look at the pictures. And they see which one of my children they were there to visit, and they'd point them out, and they'd see them all and comment on the pictures. What do you think that does to the child? It makes them feel important. You know, it just makes them feel important. Even if some of the pictures are silly, it makes them feel important. So I had this Hall of Fame, and it said something to my children about how important they were to me. My interior decorating, if any of my children would ask you what is my flavor, or what's your, I don't know what you call it, what's your style or whatever of interior decorating. You know, I go into some pictures and they have beautiful landscapes and they have all these gorgeous pictures, and I think, oh, that's so beautiful. But in my pictures, in my house, the pictures on the walls are either the Savior, the temple, or a child. And does it match? No. But is it what I love? Yes. It's what I surround myself with because I love that. And that said something to my children as they grew up. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that, but I'm just saying whatever's on your walls speaks to your children. And that's a daily, that's part of daily environment. That speaks to them. So if you have children who in their own bedrooms want to put big posters of weird stuff, I know, rock stars or gaming posters. I don't even know. I mean, I've just seen some posters that you kind of go, whoa, what is that? And it gives you a dark feeling. If you have children who want to do that in their rooms, they are creating an environment in that space. And so you need to be careful about what kinds of routines, environments they're creating. So that's part of the daily kinds of routines. I also had on my hall wall a big, and I didn't bring it today, and it's going out of style, but it was a big plaque of all my Eagles, my Eagle Scouts. And so as my first boy got his Eagle, I just stuck it up there. My second son was ultra competitive. He couldn't stand the fact that son number one, that Nate was getting his and he wasn't. So he hurried up and got his. They practically got him at the same time. Then son number three, it's, oh dear, they each got theirs. I got to get my picture. He got his up there. And 4, he followed suit. And 5 was a white child. He got his the day before he turned 18. So, you know, but it was it's just saying this is who we are. We get Eagles. We get our Eagles. We get our Eagle Scouts. So scouting's going to go away, but something else will be there. Something else will be there. And whatever that is, you can honor it as part of your family. I also had all their missionary plaques up, and I had all of my girls' young women plaques. They used to give, in our ward, they gave a young woman their plaque when they got their medallion. So those are things that were hanging in that Hall of Fame area. And then you don't have to lecture anybody. It's just like it's there, and that's just what we do as a family, and they saw it, and they wanted to be up there and be part of it. So that's part of daily. What does your house smell like? That's daily. My house used to always smell like homemade bread, because every morning I baked bread before the kids went to school, because I had 5 teenage boys that would eat it all in a day. And so you made it every day, else you didn't have any the next day. So it smelled like homemade bread. I have a daughter whose house smells like Scentsy. She burns Scentsy all the time, and it smells wonderfully delicious. But it's Scentsy, and that's just, you identify. What does your home sound like? What are the sounds? Do you have music playing? Do you know, what are the sounds? What are the smells? What are the sights? That is all part of the daily routine of your home and what they begin to feel like they stand for. Okay. You know, also, you know, we talked about jobs and routines and bedtimes and reading times, and another one now, the second one is your family traditions. So those are kind of the daily things that you do. Now, what are those things that make your family your family? That not necessarily what does your house look like or what does it smell like or that kind of daily, but what kinds of things do you do in your family? And we're not talking about conference or, I mean, we're not talking about holidays yet. That's one of its own, and we'll talk about it in a minute. But the family things would be your family mission statement and having that on your wall. That's a family tradition. Or the family motto, or the family cheer. Or you could almost make that into a family flag. You know, if you wanted to, you could have it, because you've got it all sectioned off and it's beautiful. You could have a family flag or the family motto. Family traditions are things like, I'll share with one that my sister happened to her. This was an unintentional tradition. She has 4 boys. And so one year on the last day of school, she let him come home and she bought whipped cream. And they had a whipped cream fight in their backyard. And they had a ball. And then she just hosed them all off. And it was just the most fun celebration you've ever. Have you ever had a whipped cream fight? That stuff is slick. I mean, it's really slickery. You can have, you know, like greased pig races after that. It's a great. Well, they had so much fun. Of course, as the next year is coming to an end, they said, well, Mom, you know, do we get to do it? Do we get to do it? And then they wanted to invite all the friends. So then they had a friend whipped cream party. You could come to the party, but you had to bring your can of whipped cream. And then it grew so that it was at the park, and all of their friends were coming, and she said, I was buying cases of whipped cream. So that became, for a period of time, their family tradition related to the last day of school. Our children had the tradition, our family, is that they all worked on the subdivision. Once they graduated from 6th grade, they graduated to the subdivision. And they did hard work. They were digging trenches and putting up street lights and pouring concrete. And that was just what our family did. That was one of our family traditions. So to be in our family, that's what you did. Vacations, kinds of vacations you take. We went backpacking, not camping. We went backpacking, where you take everything into the high country that you're going to need for 10 days and stay there. And it's on your back. And climbing Mount Bora. We were just talking about that last night. How you work together, how you play together, that happens repetitively. These become your family traditions. Things like rites of passage become your family traditions. Now, a rite of passage is not, it's arbitrary. You make it. In our society, we'll talk more about this on self-esteem, but in our society, there's nothing that says you are now an adult, except maybe driving, but there's nothing that says you're growing up or you're more responsible, or I think that you're more capable. So rites of passage then become those things that you need to not have very many, very few, but they need to be in concrete. They don't bend. They're like getting baptized at 8. They don't bend. And so you make your rite of passage, and then you keep it. Things like, and truly, you can make your own. I'm just giving you a couple of examples, but like, what age do you get your ears pierced? And is that a big deal? I said 12 for my girls, which is totally arbitrary. It doesn't matter. This is not doctrine. You can do it whenever. But I would take them out to lunch and make a big deal about it, and had a girls' day, and we got their ears pierced when they were 12. Tracy has a family tradition of whenever her children turn 16, with the boys, first dates with mom. There's the girls, first dates with dad. But it's not just a date. It's a training date. So Tracy, they would, the boys would have to take her out, and some of them, it was kind of a last minute thing, like they'd already asked somebody to homecoming, and now they have to get mom a date before they go out, and so, Mom, could you go do ice cream with me? And so, but they had to learn to open car doors, and learn how to order, and learn how to pay for a date, and learn how to communicate. Sometimes sons in cars don't say a lot, but sons on a date had better talk. And so just that opportunity to teach them how to be a good date. The kind of movies you watch is your family tradition. We used to have the family tradition of watching and making a big deal of all BYU football games. Win or lose, we cheered for our Cougars. That becomes a bonding family kind of experience. How you choose to keep the Sabbath day holy, your family is a family, your family. Let me tell you about another one that Tracy started. I wasn't smart enough to do it when I had kids, but I would suggest it's a possibility of something you might want to do. She had a card file box, and in the card file box, she had all the months, 12 months, a little thing that said all the months. So you had the months in the card file box. And then a 3x5 card, or if you can get a bigger box, a bigger one, for each day. Now, so on one day it would be, January 1st, but on the back of that card it might be January 2nd, and then on the next one it would be January 3rd and January 4th. So you could put one day on each side of a card, but you have them in this card file box. Then that card file box sits on the cupboard. And then when you have experiences, like the hug, you just write down on the day. So on September 24th, and you can write the year. You're just going to have it on September 24th, be on the day. Then you would write the year. Then you would write the child's name, and just a couple of words that remind you about the event. Said the Spirit felt like hugs. So that these memories are lost if you don't write them down. Then what happens is 5 years later, they'd be sitting at the dinner table and say, oh, let's see what happened on this day sometime. Go get the box, look it up, and now you have events to share and talk about. Or if you're diligent, you can use that to write your journal someday. So, but it just becomes these wonderful memory moments where you can remember and recall without spending hours. I just can't journal. I don't have time to journal. So you can keep good track of it. The other one that I have to tell you about two more that we did in our family. One was the Mary Poppins bag. And I don't know how many of you travel a lot, but we did a lot of traveling from Boise to Utah, because that's where our family was. And so when you have a Mary Poppins bag, usually the children, by the time you got to Mountain Home, were saying, how much longer? I'm bored. How much longer? Not quite Mountain Home, they would start it. And you just reach a point where you go, ooh. So we started the Mary Poppins bag. And what I would do is you make cards, and if you're really clever, you can string them across the top of the card with clothespins, put a string on, and then there's a card, and you can have Mountain Home, and then you can have Burley, and you can have Snowville, and Tree Mountain, and just whatever the stops are along the way. And as they can find the exit for that place, whatever that city is, then you pull out another treat out of the Mary Poppins bag. So the treat can be a book to read, a game to play, but it's community. It's not everybody gets it as something. I used to love, and Tracy will testify, those lemon heads, those yellow lemon heads. And we would have contests to see How many miles could you keep yours in your mouth without chewing it, just sucking it? You can do that with suckers too. Tootsie Pops are the best because they take a long time. So you have to have something that takes a long time and tell them they can't chew it. Temple needs to be one of your family traditions. Gathering names as they turn 8, going to the temple together and being baptized together. Your family take names, or even if you don't have names, go to the temple and they'll have names, but have your family go to the temple from the time they're 12, when they can get their limited use recommend. So when they're 12, they go with the young men and women's, but make it a family, and sometimes your kids like to go alone, but you need to make it dad, mom, kids, that you go together as a family, and it becomes a family temple experience. Yes?
When the Meridian Temple was doing the open house, we took our little girls, great-granddaughters, to the temple. They were so excited about it. Very hyper little girls, but they had a wonderful time. So we started a tradition of going to the temple once a month for a picnic.
Oh, perfect.
It's really kind of hard when it's freezing outside. But we just walk around and have a little picnic on the bench there.
What a great idea. Fabulous idea. See, that's making temple a tradition. That's wonderful. With that, here, oh yes.
This is back to the journaling thing.
Yeah.
My son on his mission, I write him a letter every week. And unfortunately, it's at the end, but I realized, wait a minute, this is totally family history. So I tried to go back and save as many as I could on my computer, and I'll print them out. So I'm excited for my next son to go because unfortunately it takes that for me to do it. But I realized, holy cow, this is every week, this is what happened, and this is the cool thing, and whatever. And so
Yeah.
I realized I should keep those.
Yes, do. Yeah, I kept mine too. But I had to write them longhand. So this is your homework. It is Family History and Temple Work, Sealing and Healing by Elder Runland in the last conference session. And what I want you to do as you read this, I want you to mark, underline, circle, just be cognizant of the blessings that come from making temple a family tradition. So you'll find there's at least 11. And see if that's something that you really want in your home, if you want to claim those 11 blessings. And so that's the promise that comes with making temple a part of your family tradition.
We wanted to try and do a family temple experience, but I have kids from 20 down to 6. And so it's kind of hard to figure out how to do that. So this summer we decided we were going to do that. We have one son on a mission in California. We had one that was on a service mission. And so we decided that what we would do is that I would search out names. And so I searched them out, and my 6-year-old helps me. She likes to do that. She likes to put sources in and stuff. And so I searched out names, and then I let her click all the buttons to reserve them and let her click all the buttons to print them. And then we made copies. We laid them out on the printer. We made copies of all of them. And then we took my daughter and my son that's on a service mission, and my husband and I, and Kara, who's 6. We took her. We all went to the temple, and so she had copies of all of the names printed out because they were her names because she had done them. And so Justin did the baptizing of Brooke, and then Darren did the confirmations. And while they were doing that, Kara and I were walking around outside the temple taking pictures wherever she wanted of her names that were her names. And so then they came out and we went and had dinner or something. But it works. It works. Yeah. And she thought it was great because they were her names. And so now she watches for us to finish her names.
To finish her names. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to jump because I want to end up on holiday traditions. So I'm going to jump to once in a lifetime traditions. Now, once in a lifetime traditions take thought, and probably some intentional thought, because these are things that when you start with child number 1, you have to be willing to hang on to with child number whatever. when you get to the end. So you got to have enough energy, and it's not in your book, so you'll have to take notes on it. But let me tell you the times that these things would be, that you would consider them. Number one is when you bless your babies. Who do you invite? What do you do? Is it just family? Is it just, is it extended family? What do you let grandma make the dress? What is it going to look like? Think about it before it happens. Think about what that is going to look like. Baptism. What will you do for their baptisms? Do you want to give them their own scriptures? Let me just say, a lot of people choose to do that, to give them their own scriptures. But I've taught primary, and I watch these little children come right after they've been baptized with this beautiful set of scriptures with their name engraved on them. And they love them, but they are so afraid to use them. They're afraid mom and dad will be mad at them. And so if you want to give them that kind of an heirloom kind of set of scriptures that's beautiful, also give them a paperback. Give them something that they can learn to underline in and mark in and write in, and teach them how to do that. Because your scripture should be a workbook, not a trophy. And so, but because we tend to make it a beautiful experience for them when they're baptized, which there's nothing wrong with it, but then also give them a set that they can learn to use as a workbook. CTR rings, frequently comes with baptism. Graduation, what are you going to do for graduation? So what kind of gifts do you want to give, or what kind of activities, or what kind of events do you want to have? As they leave to go to college, what kind of do you want to give them a special Father's blessing? Do you want to have a special family home evening where you reminisce their growing up? What do you want the picture to look like? Remember, there's no right or wrong. So if I'm saying something and you go, "Oh, I didn't do that," this is not a checklist. These are just ideas of things that you need to think about and decide what to do. And then Tracy's really had this experience. What do you do the night before they get married? She had 2 weddings this summer. And so do you want to have something special that you do as a family that last night before you give away your son or daughter and they're forming their own family? So is there something, what do you want that to look like? What do you want that to be? Do you want to give them a special gift? Do you want to give them something? All of these things are just things to ponder and think about if you're not there. But if your first hasn't gotten there, then you want to figure out what it'll look like. Yes?
I think this is true. When I first took this class, I was like, oh no, I haven't done traditions. But it doesn't really matter when you start them, because I found that, even though my kids are middle, I would still ask, I only did it twice, and they're like, oh mom, it's a tradition. And I was like, oh, how long have we done this? And they would have thought they'd done it since they were 2. But they had only done it 2 years, but it was, so I was like, oh good, they don't really remember. It really took the pressure off to be like, oh, I haven't done this. They won't have all these years of looking, and they don't care.
No, they don't care. And you're right. If they really love it, it's a tradition. Like right now, it is a tradition. Okay, so then the last I want to spend on holidays. Holidays, like I said, when I was growing up, we did Christmas, but that was kind of it. And so you have to decide, and remembering there's no right or wrong, but this is one of my favorite things. This is my grandma banner that is just Party at Grandma's. And Tracy made it for me for my birthday or for Christmas one year. And it goes up whenever we party at Grandma's. And I love it. So if I have the kids over for dinner, we party at Grandma's. And if we have a real party, then we party at Grandma's. And I love this. Now I'll tell you why. I am a huge, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to qualify it, because I'll make some of you feel really inadequate. And I don't want you to, because I am a huge decorator.
qualifications.
But it has to be easy. It has to be easy. I'm not artistic, and I am on the spectrum to the lazy side. So I don't like to do, put up all the streamers and false ceilings and balloons, but I want to make a statement for every holiday. So my goal has been over the years is get something new every holiday, but make it easy, both easy to put up, easy to take down, and easy to store. And you go online and see these fabulous, wonderful things, and I love them, but they're too much work. And I want my kids to walk in and feel, woo, but I don't want it to take a lot of work. So I tend to be like this. Just put it up. You just put it up and it's done. So I like to have table runners or tablecloths for each holiday. This tablecloth right here was a nice big hunk of material from Joann's. So you just get a hunk. And then you put the tablecloth on, and it's on in the morning. Tracy also did my clown, which I put up, and he comes out for any celebration that I want. And he has a hook on his hand that you can tie balloons on if you manage to get to the dollar store and buy helium balloons. But you see, I want it to be easy. Valentine's Day, Tracy also, I wouldn't know what to do without Trace. We made heart pockets, and I think we've done this just about for all of the kids now. One of my daughters, I hope she's not watching, these are for her for Christmas this year. So there's 8 in her family, and so we made 8 heart pockets for them to put out the 1st of February, and then they put love letters and treats in them. It's part of the decoration, but it's also, and look how flat it stores. So I am really into decorating, but I'm really into easy. And I think that if you're mindful of that all the time, then you can do it. As my children have gotten older, and I have to do it by myself, I still want it. Because when grandkids come over, I still want it. My house now is decorated with fall leaves and pumpkins. I mean, not jack-o'-lanterns, but just the pumpkins and the gourds and pine cones and orange twinkling lights that my granddaughter put up for me. So I feel really good about that. So, like I said, I believe in this because it makes a statement. It creates a feeling without a lot of effort. I mean, yearly, as you go through it, I believe it. I believe, personally, that birthdays are the next important thing to Christmas. I think it's the one time where you can just spotlight a child. And it needs to start in the morning, and it needs to go all day. And they need to be king or queen for a day. What you do in that is not as important as that it happens. Children always like to hear the story of their birth repeated. They want to hear about that story. So they always love to hear it. They love to see pictures of them growing up. So if you are an organized scrapbooker, either digitally or hard copy, neither of which I am, but if you were, to go through those pictures of them growing up, and they love it. They love it. One of the things that we did for birthdays and for Christmas is as they opened a gift, as they received a gift, they had to say something good about the giver before they could open the present. So it helps keep their mind not totally on self. It helps them to learn a little bit of gratitude and appreciation for gifts that are given them, rather than just ripping into presents. We also did not do many friend parties. We had special ages that they could have a friend party, 8, 12, 16, because sometimes I think when you have too many friend parties, all they're interested is getting presents. But if you have friend parties that do a service project or tie a quilt for the, for the hospital, or get involved in doing something in an activity that makes them think outside themselves, I think it can be a wonderfully fabulous experience for them to socialize together. But I think you have to be careful of what we teach, as we plan and celebrate. The other thing is, when you have friend birthdays, they're bonding with the friends. When you don't have friend birthdays, they're bonding with the family. So I think a combination of all is good, but you do have to look at what you're teaching them at each, with each birthday. Valentine's Day, I used to love Valentine's Day. It was so fun. In our house, we would draw names at Valentine's Day, just like we did at Christmas. We drew names at Christmas time because with 9 children, I didn't want them each giving to each other, because then you have 81 presents under the tree, and I just didn't like the way that looked. Even if they were dollar store presents, I didn't like the way it looked. It looked greedy. So I didn't like that. So they would draw names for Christmas and have to make them. But at Valentine's Day, they would also draw names. And, usually the home evening before, we give them each a big piece of poster board, and they had to create a Valentine for whosever name they had that represented that person. And in the beginning, when we started, I just thought that would be a fun thing. But then it became a tradition, and we did it. And it turned out to be really fun. And as the kids got to college, they would even write home at Valentine's Day and say, okay, whose name do I have? Whose name do I have? And they would want to know. I have one son, Corey, who some of you know, who he has a great love of the outdoors. And we lived just right next to the foothills, right by the foothills. And he spent all summer just roaming the foothills. And so one year, Tracy actually got his name, and so this is what she made. This was her Valentine to him. I have saved it over there. This is June grass in his socks. And at the end of the years, we had to throw away his shoes and all of his socks so he could start school again, and get him new shoes and socks, because they were just embedded with June grass. So this is the kind of thing that they were doing, very typical of that person, talking about that person. This one I have to show you because it was so, Tyler had already gone to college, and he wrote home and he says, Mom, whose name do I have? Whose name do I have? Well, I hadn't really planned on giving him a name, but when he said that, we gave him a name. And so he had his little sister, and I don't know what the difference is between Ty and Ashley, but it's quite it's, of course, they're all close, but it was, and so he wrote this on hers. It says, I just can't focus on anything but dreaming of you, Valentine. I love you, Ashley. She had this on her wall all year because that meant so much to her that a big brother would care about her. So you see, this is an opportunity for them to really express love for each other that stays with them. Then when they were gone to school, I have to show you this one too. This was a shocker for me because all of a sudden this comes from my boys who were down at BYU. And I have no idea where this came from. But my study is in nursing, and so I got my degree in nursing. And when we were in nursing, we had to practice giving injections on people. And so I made my husband let me give my first injection is right there on him. And so, see what a good guy he was. Even before we were married, he would let me give him shots. And so somewhere they found that I don't even remember this picture. I don't think I've ever seen this picture. I don't know where it came from. But they found it somewhere. And they made this Valentine and sent it to Mike and I for Valentine's Day. So it can become a really special, wonderful, Valentine's Day can become a real bonding kind of experience for the kids. It's just another one of those things where they can learn to be kind and think about each other. I wanted to go to Mother's Day, because many of you hate Mother's Day. You take it as an opportunity to pick up all the guilt for everything that you've ever done wrong as a mother. And I think a lot of mothers go to sacrament meeting and just can hardly wait to get out, because they hear all of these testimonials of these fabulous mothers. And while you're sitting there listening to them, you're thinking, and I yelled at that one this morning, and I spanked that one this morning, and I forgot the diaper bag this morning, and we're not having dinner today. And, you know, you just go over everything that you've ever done wrong as a mother as you listen to these Mother's Day talks. And I'd like to invite you to change your feeling of Mother's Day. We oftentimes feel bad on Mother's Day if our spouse doesn't acknowledge us as a mother, or if our children, you know, now mine, I'm an empty nester, so if my children didn't all call me, I could feel bad. But that's, to me, not what Mother's Day is about. To me, over the years, I have come to look at Mother's Day as my day to celebrate the opportunity and the blessing of being a mother. And it isn't an evaluation how well I did. It's that I was blessed to be able to have children and to raise them. And so I like to focus on contacting each of my children and telling them how grateful I am to be their mother. And when my own mother was alive, telling her how much I appreciated her. Now, just the week prior to Mother's Day, I'd like to read my mother's. She left her biography, and I like to read her book and remember the things that she did and share them with my children and grandchildren. So I think rather than focusing in and evaluating in and looking in, it needs to be a day to look out, to focus out, and to give gratitude for the opportunity and the joy of being able to be a mother. Thanksgiving, I just want to make an invitation that you make it an opportunity to build a foundation of gratitude. We're going to spend a whole class on gratitude coming up, and it'll actually be before Thanksgiving, so we'll talk about how to do that. But gratitude is the foundation of all spiritual qualities. Without gratitude, there's no humility, there's no faith, there's no charity, there's no love. All of those things are based on gratitude for the Savior. That is the foundation. That is the core of all other virtues. And so I think that as we hit that season that tends to be a season, it's to celebrate the birth of the Savior, but sometimes gets lost in busyness and stuff, that we take that opportunity to look at what we do for our traditions there and see how, through a home evening lesson, through thankful chains, through, you see turkeys and you put feathers on the tails of things you're thankful for, as a time, a season to focus on gratitude, not just the big meal. And particularly if you happen to be going to somebody else's house for Thanksgiving, that in your own home you've created that tradition of gratitude. Now, with all of these things, if you go online on the website, there is on the toolbar, you can hit traditions, and there's drop downs where you can get great ideas for any holiday that you want. There's drop downs for it. Your other homework assignment is, I want you to post either to Facebook or to that website drop down a tradition that you have that could benefit someone else. They just need to know about it. So what tradition, anywhere along the way, can you share that would benefit someone else? And you might find some treasures there for yourself too. The last one is Christmas. Christmas is, I love Christmas. I love, love, love Christmas. It is my favorite. As a matter of fact, if you ask any of my children, sometimes something reminds you of somebody. They love strawberries, so every time you see something with strawberries, you think of that person. And for my kids, it's Christmas. And I have a Christmas tree up all year. Christmas is my hobby. I start in January because there's so many grandkids. I start with their names in a notebook and I start shopping for them for next Christmas. And, I make Tracy come and make her help me with my hobby. And so she comes and helps me. And I love the feeling of Christmas. I love the spirit of Christmas. I love the magic of Christmas. I am a firm, dyed-in-the-wool, true believer in Santa Claus. And I know there are those who say, I don't, because I don't want to tell my children a lie and then have them someday discover it's a lie. And my feeling is, if I can give them magic for 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 years, then I want to give them magic in this world. And then as they figure it out, or they're too many of the friends at school are talking about it, then I feel like it's a time to tell them that it is now their turn to be part of creating magic in the lives of other children. One of my favorite Christmases was a year that I took the 4 oldest and I gave them the names of the 4 youngest. The 4 oldest had found out there was no Santa. The 4 youngest still believed in Santa, so I gave them each a name and I gave them all an equal amount of money. And I told them that it was their responsibility to fill the stockings of whoever they had the name for. But they had to watch that child for the next 2 to 3 weeks and figure out what it was that child, what was their interest, what did they like, what did they care about, what did they want. So now you're right in the hype of the Christmas stress season, and these 2 kids are just glued together. You find the oldest one just playing with the youngest one, and what do you like, and well, tell me what you like to do, and what's your favorite thing, and tell me what, and I just watched this, and I thought, wow, this is awesome. Then one day I took the 4 oldest out, and they went shopping, and they did their shopping. And then on Christmas Eve, after we have a big Christmas Eve program that is so fun, and after all of it was said and done, and we put them all to bed, then when the 4 youngest had finally settled down, we went and got the 4 oldest and let them fill the stockings, and then sent them back to bed. Well, when morning came, as we watched them, of course, Mike and I had taken care of their Christmas, but as we watched them, these 4 oldest went straight to the chairs of whatever name they had and sat right next to the chair and said, what did you get? What did you get? Let's see what you got. Did you see what was in your stocking? What's in your stocking? They were much more concerned about the person that they had done Christmas for than for themselves. And to me it's not just a matter of saying, oh, you're right, there's no Santa. Sorry. It's a matter of transferring you being the receiver of the magic to you being the giver of the magic. So in closing, I'm going to share with you a thing that I got. And many of you may have heard it, but I just love it. My daughter Lucy and I have been exchanging notes since the school year started. We've talked about all sorts of things, sports, books. would like to read, adventures would like to have, even stories from when I was in 3rd grade. For the most part, though, it's been light and casual stuff until last week. This is when mothers and daughters, leave notes for each other in their bed. This is the way they had a little thing that they were. So when they were talking about notes, okay. They're talking about notes, that's what they're talking about. And so last week she wrote, I need to know, she wrote, using capital letters for emphasis. Oh, thank you. Does anybody else want one? This one makes me cry. I need to know, she wrote, using capital letters for emphasis. Are you Santa? Tell me the truth. What do you do when your kid asks for the truth? You tell it, of course, doing your best to figure out a way that keeps at least some of the magic intact. Here's what I wrote. Dear Lucy, thank you for your letter. You asked a very good question. Are you Santa? I know you've wanted the answer to this question for a long time, and I've had to give it careful thought to know just what to say. The answer is no, I am not Santa. There is no one Santa. I am the person who fills your stocking with presents, though. I also choose and wrap the presents under the tree the same way my mom did for me, and the same way her mom did for her. And yes, Daddy helps too. I imagine you will someday do this for your children, and I know you will love seeing them run down the stairs on Christmas morning. You will love seeing them sit under the tree, their small faces lit with Christmas lights. This won't make you Santa, though. Santa is bigger than any person, and his work has gone on longer than any of us have lived. What he does is simple, but it's powerful. He teaches children how to have belief in something they can't see or touch. It's a big job, and it's an important one. Throughout your life, you'll need this capacity to believe in yourself, in your friends, in your talents, in your family. You'll also need to believe in things you can't measure or even hold in your hand. Here I am talking about love, that great power that will light your life from the inside out, even during its darkest, coldest moments. Santa is a teacher, and I have been his student. And now you know the secret of how he gets down all those chimneys on Christmas Eve. He has help from all the people whose hearts he has filled with joy. With full hearts, people like Daddy and me take our turns helping Santa do a job that would otherwise be impossible. So no, I'm not Santa. Santa is love and magic and hope and happiness. I am on his team. And now you are too. I love you and always will. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Amen.